To comment during the Frankly Speaking show, you first need to open the video that is being streamed live. Look for the chat box on the side or bottom of the video player. This is where you can type your message. Click inside the chat box and use your keyboard to type out what you want to say. You can type words, use emojis, or even ask questions. Once you've typed your message, press the Enter key on your keyboard or click the Send button. Your comment will then appear in the chat for everyone watching the live stream to see. If you want to send another comment, just type it in the chat box again and press Enter or Send. Your new comment will show up below your previous one.
In some schools hit hard by Hurricane Beryl, are we to expect the usual for the start of the year and for the whole year? A big part of what will happen in the classroom, the learning outcome, is the teacher staff. And we want to talk to the new president of the Jamaica Teachers Association about that. We also want to consider the imminent departure of Nigel Clark to a rather cushy and consequential job as Deputy Managing Director of the IMF. Also, it's our intention this week to examine that claim by the Minister of Agriculture, Floyd Green, that there are reports to him of price gouging on vegetable and food. Now, where did that come from? And who are the people who got licenses to bring in cheap vegetable anyway that would help to moderate the prices? With us today are our regular panelists, Desmond Richards, journalist and founder of Rebel Radio Jamaica, and Winnie Anderson-Brown, educator and chatbot coach. Now, a special welcome to Dr. Mark Smith, who has taken the reins of the JTA and is only now the third JTA president to have been elected unopposed. Thank you all for joining us. Please share and subscribe to the podcast. We have responded to your requests and have dedicated 45 minutes for this podcast. Also, we intend to pay more attention to your comments and highlight them during the program and after, in addition to adding the comments and questions on the comment section on the podcast. We welcome your text. 876-503-9995. That's 876-503-9995. That's our WhatsApp number. Now, do we have Dr. Smith this time? Yes, sir. Dr. Smith, special welcome to you, sir.
Oh, thank you so much.
It is our pleasure to have you. And I know it's a very busy time. I know that in the latter part of last week, it was very, very busy for you. Now, Smith, even before I go into a little bit about your taking the reins of the JTA, what sort of school year should parents expect? What should the start of this school year be like?
Well, I am hoping that it is going to be one with boundless opportunities for growth and development of the students, as well as great collaboration, and we'll be able to move the conversation on because there are so many critical issues that we must tackle in education. I think we're at a pivotal time in the country's history, and I believe, being the perennial optimist that I am, that we're going to have a fantastic year.
You think we're going to have a fantastic year, even though...
Yep, despite all the challenges.
What's your optimism based on?
The spirit, the resilience of our people. We have found the opportunity to, on numerous occasions, to be able to, really chart a course in some difficult times. And I believe that the government, the Ministry of Education, will start to understand the critical challenges we face and move towards some resolution that will be able to ensure that we can stem the flow of teachers leaving the country, as well as address many other critical issues that bedevil the system.
But
Sorry, go ahead, Desmond.
Mr. Smith, could you identify some concrete steps that you have seen from the government that would make you feel come to that conclusion? Give me some concrete steps that you have seen from the government.
Well, it's still early time yet. Yeah, the term has not started, but one of the things I have seen that I'm hopeful it's not just posturing is been in dialogue with the minister, and there at least seems an interest in listening, and that's where it starts first, by having what I call meaningful dialogue. It would not be a very good start if I got out there and started saying nothing's going to work. As a leader, I've found that we have to take a very optimistic stand, and then we do the work in the background to get things to happen. I've made some very strong pronouncements regarding things that are critical in helping to transform the landscape of education, and at least the minister has reached out to me to say there's a willingness for us to cooperate around some of these things and to have meaningful discussion around it. I think that is the first step. I really could be one of those persons just saying, it's always like this, but I've learned in leadership that sense of hope is so critically important to get transformation going.
But Mr. Smith, hope has to be based on realism. For example, I am talking about what are the clear evidence that the government is going to put more money into education so you can employ more teachers, build more classrooms, provide the resources that is required to address the educational system, the shortfalls in education in the country. Yes, talking and making promises. We have been accustomed to that. I am asking, what are the steps if the government has indicated that, oh yes, we are going to increase the budget so that you can teach more, we can employ more teachers, deal with classrooms, and all the other inadequacies affecting the educational system?
I want to, again, just underscore the fact that I have officially not yet started, right? So at this junction, I can't say that, they need to do X or Y. I officially take it up tomorrow morning. Yeah, that's when I take up the JT. And so I have not had the type of deep level engagements with the ministry to say that, things aren't going to work out. The ministry is not interested in partnering with us. They're not interested in developing plans. So I won't jump the gun. I think one must be reasonable in terms of our expectations. And so time is something that we have to manage. But you are right that we have heard them speak time and time again and give out a lip service about what will change in education. And it has not, in many instances, come to fruition. But that is why you have bodies like the JTA that will continue to advocate and agitate and mobilize the citizens and particularly teachers towards helping to move the conversation and move tangible action forward on many of these critical issues. But I think it's a little bit preemptive to say that they have not, considering that my term will start tomorrow when I'll actively engage with them on many of these issues.
Mr. Smith, you mentioned a while ago that
I might just add to that. I might just add to that if I may. Hope. The reality is, hope is much like faith. It's something you expect, yeah. And so we have to keep that hopeful disposition. I've found it does help to really energize us when you're on a long journey, and we're going to be on a hell of a journey this year towards trying to address many of the critical and systemic issues that we face in the country regarding education.
There's something I want to put on the table as well. The Jamaica Teachers Association and the Ministry of Education, they do have that kind of relationship where you have a liaison officer and meetings. So the possibility is there to raise the issues in that forum.
Indeed, and that is what I will seek to do,
Right.
using all the available levers and systems at our disposal to ensure that we are able to, move the agenda that we have outlined forward.
Yes.
Mr. Smith, I don't know if it is frozen there, but Mr. Smith, you said
Yes, go ahead.
earlier in this conversation that there are about 3 critical issues that you identified earlier. Can you just elaborate on those, take a minute or so, and elaborate on what you see as the critical issues that must be addressed for education to move
Sorry,
forward?
you're breaking up. You didn't come through clearly a while ago. Could you repeat?
All right, I'm just saying, can you speak to us about those 3 of the critical issues that you see that must be addressed this year?
Yeah.
Are you hearing me? Oh, Mr. Smith's network is unstable.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead, Mr. Smith.
Sorry, I wasn't able to hear your question.
All right, very quickly, let me put it this way. What are the 3 critical issues that you would identify to move education forward this year that must be addressed? 3 critical issues.
3 critical issues. The first I'd like to tackle is the issue of migration of our teachers. I think that it's really what I would consider a standard of living issue, and we have to tackle that. We just really cannot continue as we are. It puts us in a position in which we are almost in a revolving door model of education. People come in a year, 2 years, and they go overseas, and we lose what I consider the investment we have made in them towards improving the Jamaica education system. So we have to tackle that, and not a piecemeal approach. I do not believe that the ministry has put forward any plans that I would consider sustainable, right? So bringing a bunch of foreign teachers at this time is not really a sustainable or long-term strategy.
That's one. And you want to mention 2 other critical ones that you have mentioned before?
6 formers to come in and teach, or retired teachers. None of those are sustainable long-term strategies. And so there really has to be that coalescing around the need for us to economic development. That is the education system, which should form a part of that engine that drives our economic development and allow us.
And that's one of your issues.
All right. So that forms a critical one. Now, that is directly linked to what I consider one of the push factors, which is remuneration of teachers. What we are finding is that too many teachers are forced to pick up odd jobs in order just to make ends meet, doing side hustle, and that is not what you want for a profession that is so critical to our national development. What you're finding is that you really want individuals to be able to focus on the critical aspects of the job and devote that time to the development. We also need to ensure that the salaries are good enough that it can constantly attract the strongest and brightest minds to the profession. It is crucial that we look at other jurisdictions that have used a model that focused on human capital development, and so education is literally core of that strategy. And so you have to ensure that you pay at a rate that young people, when looking to identify a profession, think that they can make a living in the profession and a comfortable one. And so I think that becomes one of those. Not only that, we're in a global bit of a crisis when it comes down to teachers, because we're seeing this underpayment, not unique to Jamaica. In the United States, for instance, many states, due to the salaries that are paid there, you found that many teachers left. The high stress of the job is also one of those critical issues that also force a lot of teachers to leave the classroom in the States and the UK and other countries. And what happened in that regard is that then they looked for a short-term solution, which is again pulling our teachers to go overseas. And that is creating a domino effect. And that is something that we have to tackle. Yes, we see it in other fields, but it is particularly amplified in the sphere of education. And so we have to have a broader, more strategic look at how it is we can retain our teachers, we can make the profession viable in the long term, and to ensure that there is a sense of what I call national consensus around the value impact of education and why education is everybody's business. The other thing I'd like to, yes.
Dr. Smith, how would you feel about someone who's listening to you now or who heard you over the last couple of days from your presidential address and all that, to say, yes, here's another one coming to talk about pay for teachers, salaries for teachers, and nothing for the education system, nothing about the standards we need to set, nothing about the reading levels we need to have, nothing about the abysmal pass rate in mathematics and English. When is the JTA going to take on that? How would you respond to somebody who says
well, one has to remember my role. I am the head of a union. And so I can't be speaking on things that are primarily not the main focus. So yes, salaries, conditions of service is of course a critical thing. But the JTA, as was outlined in my speech, is deeply committed to developing or helping to develop policy and various interventions to support the development of the system. But let us be clear about it. This is a union, and so that is one of the issues that our membership, which they make contributions every month towards the union. I have to speak about those issues, and especially when it is an underlying factor. I'm almost a bit frustrated to hear people sit and talk sometimes as though we must never talk about the matter of compensation, but they expect the world in return. And I say we often get what we pay for. The reality is, we have to start to seriously look at how it is that we structure our education. I've spoken on numerous about the under-investment in education, the under-investment in student learning. That is something that even in my installation speech, I discuss that in great detail regarding PEP, going really into the nuances of how it is that we need to ensure that we have a more inclusive education system. I find, however, that many media practitioners and sometimes I guess some lay people like to latch on to comments that are made regarding compensation. And to be fair, as I asked them, I said, I'm a union leader. So I have to speak about that because that is a serious concern of many of our teachers. For many, many decades, we have been agitating, and I think it would have been probably right back to 2000 and, in the Durant-Dixon period, that was the last time that there was when we had a reclassification to 80% of market in terms of the value of our degrees. And so since then, we have seen our purchasing power eroded by inflationary pressures. And so we have been, just like many public sector work, we've been banning our belly, we've been holding strain. But in the last set of restructuring that occurred with the public sector, we came the worst off. We were one of those groups that we felt very disaffected by how it actually worked out.
Mr. Smith, the recent restructurings in salaries, what we have seen is that the gap between the administrators and the rank and file teachers has widened significantly. Principals and school administrators, I don't hear them complaining. They are going to the bank. The people who are complaining in the teachers are the rank and file teachers. They are suffering. Their salaries cannot cope with the cost of living. So I am saying, I don't see anything for the JTA. anything wrong with the JTA agitating for salaries? Yes, for teachers. And that is why I advanced the argument that if, as the new JTA president, if you have seen anything concrete from the government to address the issues, because the fact of the matter is that the salaries for teachers over the decades, the rank and file teachers, has been very low. And that is one of the main reasons why they are leaving the classroom.
Absolutely. I totally concur with you. In fact, that is one of the matters that I intend to pursue with great diligence. When you look at the rank and file, I think they were left behind. Many years ago, there was this push towards ensuring that we could at least tie our increases to some type of mechanism that would monitor inflation, and we'd have subsequent adjustments. I think that was eventually abandoned, but we need those type of measures, because what we end up in is a constant race to increase probably the dollar value that you get. And when you look at the last round of negotiations, many teachers, it was negligible what the increases were, But you look at, for instance, nurses and teachers, they were very close at one point in terms of their compensation. The beginning salary of a nurse is roughly $1 million more than a teacher. And so these are both 4-year degree programs, right? These are both two critical areas for national development. And many teachers have come out feeling very sour about how it is, and rightly so. My wife is a teacher, and I know the level of commitment, time that is put in, the extra hours that they have to work, and it is unfortunate that we have not been able to get the government to move beyond just empty platitudes on the matter of improving their remuneration package for teachers. I'd like to add to that also that there is this prevailing notion that, you must understand that the salaries are low in teaching. It's a job where it's about patriotism and giving back. And I said, we have to understand that this is people's time, and if you really are serious about the business of education, then we have to ensure that we are able to consistently attract the strongest, the smartest individuals, those who are committed to the job. And too often I hear stories like one recently of a young lady, when she was telling me she was about to leave the island, was at some symposium. And while I was there talking with her, she indicated to me that she was going to leave, and I was trying to encourage her to stay. And she said, Mr. Smith, I've passed that point of the patriotism. I'm looking at the fact that I have to ensure that I take care of me, because I've found that I love my country, but my country doesn't love me. And that kind of resonates with a lot of young people, that type of mindset. So, Don, my mom was a teacher, and so I understand the struggle. I remember being a classroom teacher myself, and the struggles you really go through just to eke out an existence. I don't think any teacher in this country should be struggling with day-to-day expenses simply because we have failed as a society to recognize the value and the importance of education and to pay salaries that are commensurate with that contribution.
We're going to wrapping up this section soon, but I just needed some quick answers on a couple of issues. The first one, how many teachers have we lost this year to migration? This academic year is just ending.
We're still doing our data. It ranges anywhere from, I heard numbers being put out by 900 to 1,000. We are still doing our data gathering, but what is concerning is that year over year, if you keep losing that number of teachers, it's bound to start to impact the quality of instruction in the classroom. And that is because usually you're losing out of your more seasoned teachers. I have principals that have reached out to me and said, sir, I have 9 people in my math department and 8 of them left. If you keep doing that, these children are going to suffer in the long run. And we can keep on dancing around the issue, but it is a matter of ensuring that we are able to deliver consistently a certain quality, an acceptable quality of education to all the children. And it will only get worse unless we are able to put in place serious measures to tackle those issues.
You raised, and I'm going to stop after this and allow Winnie. I know she has a question to put to you. But you raised at the conference this matter of the elite schools and others. And you are principal of an elite school in Jamaican context, Munro College. how will we be able to get past this present arrangement where we have these few elite schools that get the cream of the pep performance, and the others go to all manner of schools, and will have the results generally that one should expect? How are we going to get around that?
Well, first of all, I think Munro College is, of course, one of the top schools in the island. With matter of pedigree with schools, to be honest, Did
we lose him there? Yeah, we lose him.
Yes, frozen. Yeah.
Mr. Smith, you have to say that again. Dr. Smith,
My volume has gone down.
Yes, yeah, frozen. Yeah.
Hello,
Okay.
can you hear me? Yes, you dropped off a while ago. I lost you. Can you hear me now?
We are hearing you again. You started by saying something about the schools, elite schools, and the others.
Right. I prefer to stay away from the term elite schools. What we know is that there are some schools that will have a higher concentration of students that do better in our standardized test. And so the main selection tool that is used by the Ministry of Education to place students is the PEP exam, or assessment, as they like to call it.
How are we going to get past that, sir? That can't continue. We can't get education on that level.
Well, the thing about it is we are a democratic country, and it is really a matter of choice that people choose to go to some of these schools, but we must equip the other schools to provide the level of education that is necessary now to move all our people forward. So we don't end up, as I often say, with having pockets of excellence in a sea of mediocrity. That is one of my huge concerns, that we have an education system in which they're under-resourced generally, and then added to that, they get lower performing students. And I was a teacher for many years in schools that got students who performed at a lower end of the spectrum. But you found it was the same teacher that then went to Campion if there was a vacancy. Yeah, it was the same teacher that went to Glenmuir or went to Munro College. So it's less about it, and it's about usually the resources. We also find that if you were to do data, and this is something that my presidency will be focused a lot on, in terms of building stronger data sets, that we can explore these things in a more nuanced way. We tend to shoot from the hip a lot, and we need to get more data to inform what we do.
Dr. Smith, you also have some internal cleaning to do, because one of the things that I am shocked about.
Mm-hmm.
How can the JTA, a former president of the JTA, suing the JTA? What is that? Can you explain?
You know what? This matter is in court, so of course I can't discuss it. Beyond saying that, every Jamaican under our constitution has the right to exercise, their right to use the courts to resolve matters which they think they cannot resolve using other means. So I guess an assessment was made by the immediate past, Ms. Lasagna Harrison, former president, and she decided that she wanted to go there. Now, beyond that, can't discuss it, but I will say that these things will happen. I believe we must also maintain a strong sense of openness and transparency in discussing and dealing with issues within the association. And my presidency will focus a lot on that. But beyond that, I can't comment.
All right, Winnie, over to you. And
yes,
because we're going to be wrapping up with Dr. Smith in a little while.
Yes, I just have to make these comments. One, I think it is important for the JTA to expose the other committees. It's not only the salaries and conditions of service committee there is within JTA. And JTA has a responsibility to allow the public to know of the other committees. I think that's one thing that JTA can do, to make sure that people know that these others exist. That is important, I believe. And another thing.
Okay.
Go ahead. You go ahead.
Right. I was going to make a comment on that. And I think that is sometimes a bit unfortunate. I was doing an interview earlier last week. And, the individual said, "Oh, we pretty much talk about salaries all the time." And I was like, "Well, people who interview me ask about salaries all the time, and so I'm forced to then respond to those things." The reality is, most of our budget, if you were to look at the JTA's budget, we spend the largest single chunk of our budget is used towards teacher development, professional development. We are also a professional development association. That is also one of our big, duties that we perform. And we spend a lot of time engaging in policy, prescriptions and developing policy and supporting policy development of the Ministry of Education. So we see ourselves as partners in getting to a better place in education. However, oftentimes the discussion is hijacked by salary discussions, usually because it's placed to the president about the salaries. And so you end up talking about that. That gets amplified. And sometimes, as I said to one person, I said, listen, I would love for us to pay our teachers well, so I can focus on all the other nuanced issues that are so critical to national development. It's always as a distraction, because if we can just get to paying them well, so I can spend more of my time focusing on those other things, then I think we'd be well on our way in terms of moving the needle forward in terms of national development overall. But it is what it is. The truth is there is just so much that we do as an association, from local collaborations to international collaborations towards helping to empower and build capacity within our teachers. But that is usually lost in translation. I'll give you one, Winnie. This year, our president, the former president, immediate past president, Mr. Leighton Johnson, for a Labor Day project, we actually opened some virtual reality rooms in four high schools, one in each region. Nobody talks about that. How many, what do you call virtual reality rooms has the ministry actually opened? And yet the union, it's not our job to do that, but we see it. We have the vision, and we try to leverage that towards helping to develop our school. But usually those things do not, it falls under the radar. Although we try to, right? But it's usually not the usual salacious stuff that the media loves to chase after.
JTA has
a spot. JTA has a time, teachers' time. JTA can do better. The Public Relations Committee can do much better in terms of publicizing what is done other than.
I agree with you. That's amazing that the two of us, it looks like you are looking at my my program for the year, because that is one of the key things under my program. It looks at public relation apparatus and for us to do an entire audit of it, because I believe that we do so much and is oftentimes not effectively and efficiently disseminated in a way that will build the type of consensus and support that is necessary. That people really understand that there is just so much about our march with the people of this country over the last 60 years towards making Jamaica's education system much better than it was in the 1960s. And so a lot of the suggestions came through the agitation of the JTA. People like Professor Errol Miller, which served as the only independent senator at the time, which helped to drive many of the developments within the Ministry of Education and the education system in general. He then went on to be permanent secretary. But these are some of the things that you're quite right. We need to tell that story a lot better. And so one of the things I've also outlined is the need for us to have a documentary, to engage a company to do a documentary on the 60 years of the JTA, because I think we need to tell that story and spread the gospel, as you put it, in a much
final
more
question to you, because we are running out of time.
The last thing, the Education and Research Committee has a lot of work to do, and it has been working very hard, and that should be highlighted as well. The final thing I'll say on this is that you cannot have classless schools in a classist society. What do I mean by that?
That's a heavy lift. I heard that one. That's a heavy lift. That's a big one.
I have to summarize it like that in the interest of time. Yes.
But you're quite right, and we have seen, the impact of education. This is cross-cultural. If you were to look at it, the large data sets, in terms of global studies that have been done, higher income households, children tend to perform better per capita than lower income households. And the reason for that is because the parents usually use their additional means towards ensuring that their children have special advantages in the teaching and learning process. So, for instance, you'll find that they'll have a lot more tutors, the quality of the tutors that are available to them. They'll ensure that they get all the technology, all the books and other resources they need. Parents, if the parent cannot physically be there, they'll get somebody to be there to help to monitor the child. And you will look at the opposite end of the spectrum from kids from lower income households, where the parents oftentimes use much of their time trying to eke out an existence. And so you end up with a child not being monitored in many instances or adequately monitored. You'll find that it may not have many of the basic resources necessary to operate within school. But we have some amazing stories of people overcoming the odds to still do very well. I mean,
yes, but the majority of them don't overcome the odds. Mr. Smith, the majority of them don't.
Well, that is something I talk about. Indeed, the majority of them, and that.
Yes.
You're quite right, Franklin. You're quite right, and that is why we need to do more. And my articulation of the need for greater levels of inclusion is to understand that we have to find a way to minimize, that advantage that students from higher income households as opposed to lower income households, and ensure that we build an education system which gives greater opportunities for all students, irrespective of which home they come from.
Inclusion.
What is critical is, seems like we're running out of time.
Yes, but I'm going to give you the final 30 seconds by saying, how should we judge you? How should the public judge you this year? What should we use to decide whether you have done a good year or not by this time next year?
Well, one of the things I believe is that don't judge me against God, judge me against men. So judge me against my contemporaries and the work I would have been able to accomplish based on the mandate I would have laid out. And I look forward at another time to probably share with you a couple of those things that are going to be so critical in helping to move this national conversation forward. The expectation is that the government will understand, and I will be able to apply enough pressure, through dialogue and through other means to ensure that there is this, move towards action, as we say in Jamaica, not just a bag of mouths.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Mark Smith, new president of the JTA, and his proper functioning, or his legitimate level of functioning really starts tomorrow. He has issued a back-to-school message and all that, which you'll see in the press. But we thank you very much, Dr. Smith, and wish you all the best and within the education system. Thank you. Now, Desmond, this past week, we got the news that Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark will be leaving to take up the job as Deputy Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund. You have some thoughts on this, Desmond, so go ahead. Let's hear what you are saying, whether you're there all in praise or where you are.
Well, it is a personal success for Minister Clark. But one of the things that I would like to dispel is that there are some people, because I heard some views indicating that the minister's appointment is going to assist Jamaica and other countries like Jamaica. That will not happen.
No, man, one man can't go and change the IMF.
That will not happen.
No,
right?
One man can't go and change the IMF, so I'm sorry.
And the other thing that we must note, that Dr. Clark's tenure has left many loopholes at the macro level. And we have paying down our debt faster. Yes. We have money at the Bank of Jamaica.
International reserves.
But the country is like a father who has a big bank account and his children are suffering. They need dental care, they need medical care, they need clothes, they need education. Now, as it stands right now, look at what we have just finished discussing. The teachers are leaving the classroom, right? Migrating, leaving their job. Education is in shambles. Ordinary people cannot access medical care. They cannot take care of their children because they cannot afford to buy food, clothes, school books. So 100, and the other thing is that nearly 1 million Jamaicans are squatting, right? So at the bottom, and this is what has continued from 1962. The people at the bottom, they are left behind, right? And so Dr. Clark's elevation is a personal success. But as it relates to success for the people of Jamaica, I give him a 0.
You mean he hasn't steadied the financial ship in Jamaica? Is that what you're trying to suggest, Desmond?
Well,
He has
look at
provided us
the
with 6 years of
recent restructuring of salaries for the public sector workers. Look at it. Do you realize that the rank and file workers in the public sector are left behind? The salary increases go to those at the top. The members of parliament, they got 200%. The judges, the administrators, all those who are at the top, they are laughing to the bank. The workers, those who are carrying out the jobs, the rank and file, they are the ones who are left behind.
Okay, so you are giving Mr. Clark a thumbs down on his performance while acknowledging that he has got a good job. He has done well for himself.
No, the workers are left behind, sir.
All right.
The workers are left behind.
I'm sure we're going to be hearing a lot more about that. I'm sure over the next couple of days and weeks before Mr. Clark goes. He says he has some things to tidy up. Now, I just want to come very quickly to Minister of Agriculture, Floyd Green. He has a tough job on his hands, but comments he made last week about price gouging won't help and doesn't advance the thinking in the sector. Look, Mr. Green is saying that he has heard that there's price gouging on vegetables and fruits. What he says about price gouging is not clear to me whether there is in fact price gouging. But since I've run out of time in here, let me just make these points. Fruit and vegetables are 300% higher than at the time right after Hurricane Beryl. I have pointed to these prices before. The Ministry of Agriculture has responded in its usual way by allowing licenses to a few people. We heard that last week. We don't know who these people are, and now the minister is coming to tell us, well, it doesn't seem the traders are passing on. Who are these traders, Minister? Don't bring up that issue to suggest you are being the champion of the consumers, because the way we champion the consumers is bringing down these prices and steadying the market. And I warn people, look what is happening in Nigeria now. The United Nations has just suggested that it is seeking $300 million US to help prevent starvation in some sections of Nigeria because the agricultural system has gone to pot. Oh, we don't have any system of storage, proper distribution, etc. I wish when the minister comes around to that he will have a few nice speeches but take the action. I'm sorry I couldn't really get into this issue, but I thank you all for being with us today. Thanks to Desmond Richards and Winnie Anderson Brown. A special thanks to JTA President Mark Smith, Dr. Mark Smith. Thanks also to Joshua Black for keeping us on top here. And to all of you, remember you can get this podcast again by using the same link I wish you got us. On behalf of all of members of our team, wishing you a great rest of the week. I'm Frankly McKnight. Until then.